Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning, Rob.
Morning.
Morning. So while we give a minute or two, I think it's Cornerstone's week, but I don't know if it's not Frankie.
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
what's going on with rates and money this week? Just give us that one.
Well, let's see. Can you hear me, Rob?
I can, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The Treasury markets were holding steady this week. The 10-year would drop to 4.64%. It's a noticeable difference from the 4.8 last week, so it seems like it's coming back in our favor. On a positive note, the jobless claims for the week were higher than expected, so that's with hopes, with the jobless claims coming in under expectations, the Federal Reserve might cut rates. So we'll see. We'll continue to see, but we're gonna remain at this level that we've been in probably for the foreseeable future. They went from 4 cuts this year to 2 cuts to 1 cut, so it's really at any given day or week. The Feds will just keep an eye on the labor markets. That's going to determine how many cuts they're coming in at. So we'll see. But right now, rates are in the upper 6s, low 7s. With government loans, they're probably in the mid 6s. So just hold steady, and we're going to be riding these rates for the foreseeable future. Expectation is rates probably by the end of the year coming down to that mid 6 to lower 6 rate range, but we'll continue to see. So that's what's going on in the market. It's a day by day thing, and let's just keep an eye. Let's just keep focusing on selling, getting people pre-approved, and just holding steady for the foreseeable future.
Fantastic. So bottom line, don't let rates get into affect your business or your mindset. All right.
Exactly. Let's hold steady.
Correct. So today I want to get a little bit more involvement from the group. I'd like to see maybe 2 volunteers to tell me about how your listing appointment is structured, and maybe even give me a percentage. Is it 50% go according to plan, 99%, or is it 25% it goes along to plan? So question is, you meet them at the door. How does your appointment proceed, and what percentage of that appointment is consistent every time? Who wants to be a volunteer on that?
Hi, Jackie here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay. I would say 99% it's the same every time.
Okay, and from when you meet with them, can you just give me like a 90-second maximum description of, like, you walk through the house, then you go through the comps, then you...
Sure. I put my stuff down at their table, and then I asked them to give me a tour of their home. They show me around. I have a little notepad. I take notes. I ask age of items, all of that. Then we sit down at their table. I ask them to sit next to me with my laptop, and I tell them I'm first going to talk a little bit about myself and my company, and how we would sell your property, and then I'll go over the numbers. Is that okay with you? And that's how it goes.
And then you go through the comps, and you try to establish what you believe the value to be.
When I go over numbers, I say to them, I'm going to show you the properties we're comparing it with, and you're going to be able to tell me what the value of your home is. I don't want them to ever think that I'm just randomly coming up with the number. I actually show them, okay, why did this one get is 50,000 less, and this one's 50,000 more. I show them why that is, and then we come up with a value together. 90% of the, maybe even higher, when I do it like that, they agree with my evaluation of what their property's worth.
Okay. So, you have a 90%, if you think it's worth, 800,000, 90% of the time you're bringing it to market at 800?
I usually do a little bit higher than that, and I explain to them because people are going to ask for some kind of reduction. No one, very rarely, unless it's priced very well, will people pay what you ask. Everyone wants to feel like they're getting a deal. That's
Okay.
sort of the
So,
approach I take.
I have a fundamental, difference with you on that particular mindset, and I
Okay.
think you probably have been influenced a little bit by seller and buyer mentality. But I tremendously appreciate you sharing that with me. Do you think that before you go over the pricing with them, that the sellers think it's worth more than before you go over it with them? By and large, or do you think that they have a pretty good idea what their homes are worth?
I would say more often they undervalue their home. Like I will write down after we go over the numbers, I will write down on a pad what I think the property's worth, what its current value is, but I don't show them. And then I ask them, will you share with me what you think your property's worth? I would say majority of the time they're undervalued. They're surprised by what I'm telling them.
Wow, because I would say by show of hands, who's on camera, who thinks that they're usually think their house is worth a lot more because they're, they're not objective, right? And who thinks that most of their clients are surprised by how much they think their house is worth? Oh, I thought it was worth less. Who shares that sentiment? Raise your hand. So looks like we have one, probably about 40 to 1. So that's that's it. That's good to know. And I appreciate your transparency on that. But I think most sellers, including most of us on this call, aren't going to be objective when we sell our own property. It's very hard, even if we're experts, because how many of us have seen, a really skilled professional overprice their house and get less than they should? If you've seen that, raise your hand, right? It happens a lot. And this is my there's no ugly baby theory. Okay. Did you ever see a parent say, look at my ugly child? Right? The emotion, causes them to love and see the child as beautiful every single time. And with something as personal as their home, they can't be objective. They see their home in overwhelming, not always, in overwhelming percentages as being more grandiose or greater than it really is. Okay. So, do I have anybody else that wants to just give me a maximum 90-second rundown of what their listing appointment or conversation looks like? One other volunteer?
I'll do it.
All right, Mr. Durso.
So you have to excuse me because I'm driving. So I I do the same thing on every single appointment because I want to try to have as much control over the process as I can. I go in the front door. I try to find some area of commonality with the customer. We have a conversation that takes probably the largest percentage of my time is just talking to the folks, trying to find out as much about them as I can. Um, the actual process of the listing appointment is bonding with them for me. Um, this is just something that I developed over 40 years. So I spend a lot of time getting to know them, bonding with them, finding commonality. When I finally have gotten to a comfortable place where they're comfortable and I'm comfortable, that's when we really start to discuss what their plans are. A lot of questioning. Where do you want to go? What time frame? All that good stuff. Um, so that by the time we get to the numbers, they've already really told me what they're trying to do. They've already told me how much they owe on the property. They already told me by process of questions how much equity they think they have in the property. So I know the ballpark, and if as long as that aligns with um, the comparables that I've already run on the area, then we can sit down and figure out the best place to start. As far as pricing is concerned, I'm going to defer to assume that everybody has a good handle on what market they're in. For our market, where we still have very little inventory and homes are still selling for quite a bit over asking, I explain the process of pricing as being the most important part of the process, and that pricing it right is the one factor that will keep them from getting sold or not getting sold. In our area, that means underpricing it as far as where the market is telling you. If the market's telling you 800 is the number, 775 is the right way to go.
And,
Because when people, go ahead.
and Rob, how do you describe that principle?
Well, I try to explain to them that I go back to when they bought the house, and I suggest, remember when you bought the house, you said you wanted to spend around 500 and you were looking at things that were 550, understanding that everybody left a little meat on the bone to negotiate. And I say to them, imagine that you were in backwards world and now it's the total opposite. And then I show them examples of comparables that were asking 775 and sold for 800. And that's the majority of the comps today. And they go, it's
An aha moment. I think we might be losing you.
I'm sorry. Did I lose you?
Nope, we got you now. Yep.
Okay. So that's the aha moment for them. They're like, oh, oh. And when you can show them, telling people is one thing. When you can show them what's happening in the comparables, that changes everything.
Most sellers think that their house is worth more than the comp show. Every time I go to an appointment, I give them your selection, Rob, where you say there's the lotto price, there's market value, and there's the auction price. So at the lotto price, you're going to sit on the market for many days without any showings. At market value, you probably get maybe an offer or two. But if you price it below market value, guess what's going to happen? Then I wait and let them say, "Oh, we'll probably get a lot of offers." I'll say you'll pick and choose the best offer, the best buyer, the best terms, and you'll probably get your price or maybe even more.
Exactly.
I kind of leave it in their hands at that point. And then we choose a price that's comparable to both of us. Sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's right on the money. I never get them to get below market value, but I try.
So one observation that I've seen is a lot of times your peers will spend an excessive amount of time comparing their house to other ones that sold to be able to demonstrate what the market value is or what the property would likely appraise for. Do you think a lot of times that's where a lot of time is spent, focused, and I'm going to use the term maybe wasted by, saying, oh, well, my house has a bigger lot, I only have a 2-car garage, right? Do you see people going down the weeds with that?
Absolutely, all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Like I bet, does that happen by your area? People go in the weeds with that?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I was asking Beth, like Beth and Wilson, you see people go in the weeds with that stuff?
Yeah, because whatever you show them as a comp, they give you the argument of why theirs is better.
Right.
But
Yeah,
it-
they're trying to
There's-
advocate, they're trying to advocate for their position, right?
Right.
And again, Beth, this is another no ugly baby syndrome. Okay, no parent has an ugly baby, no owner has an ugly house.
Especially if they've paid for improvements, you know, they think those improvements are worth 100% of what they paid for them.
There's lots of reasoning behind why people feel the way they feel. And let me ask the group, can you win an argument with a homeowner at a listing appointment? Can you? Who thinks you can win an argument with a homeowner at a listing appointment?
Rob, I
And
think you can win an argument, but then you won't win the listing.
who thinks
I think-
you can't win an argument? Raise your hand. Okay, was that Lisa? You had said that, right? You can win an argument, but you won't get the listing. Is that you, Lisa?
Yes, it's me, Lisa from Florida.
So those are the exact words. You can win the argument, but you won't get the business. So I would say let's take a different approach from arguing or digging our feet in, and let's take an analytical approach and spend a couple of things. And this is worth writing down because I know you give me an hour of your time. I want to give you the absolute best value prop from the hour you give me. The words that we should be using throughout the listing is, things like if we decide to work together, what strategy would you like to use? We decide to work together. When would you like to launch the listing? Okay. And what that does is it levels the playing field from a homeowner who feels empowered to make a decision, right? They feel like it's completely up to them whether they hire you and they give you the privilege of selling their house. And when I change the language to if we decide to work together, what does that imply to you? Anybody?
That we're not sure that we're gonna take the listing or want the listing, it just depends.
It levels the playing field, right? Because Fran, like if you're not going to be a reasonable seller, I'm not going to take the listing. Is that fair? And if I went to you, Ryan, and said, Ryan, if I hope you don't mind, but if I feel like, I can't get you the most value, I'm not even going to ask to work with you. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Right, but is that a good? I think that's a great mind space to be in. If I can't help you get the most value, I'm not even gonna offer to service you on this listing because I want to make sure that you get the highest value and the least amount of stress in this process. Now, when you say something like that, or even if you just think it, do you think people feel the way you think? I think absolutely, right?
I think they get taken back, by it.
They get taken back.
A little bit, like, oh,
Well, yeah, because
okay,
every
we're not so
interview,
desperate.
exactly.
But you mean taken back in a positive way that you're not
Yeah.
going to say anything to get the listing, right?
Yeah, yes,
And wouldn't you want somebody who's not going to say anything just to get the listing, who's going to tell you the truth, whether you like to hear it or not,
yes.
right? And if they, if they had a lie detector test and they could put you on the lie detector test and say, will you tell me anything to get my listing? And you can say no, and it'd be like you pass with flying colors, right? That's what we want to be. And if you were to say to them, hey, would it be okay if I pass if I don't think I can get you the highest price with integrity? Yes. Would it be okay if they knew that you weren't just there to say I want to make $8,000 or $20,000 on this particular transaction, and that your body language says, look, Gary Singer, if all I ever did was sell your house and I didn't do a great job where you referred me to your nephew and your neighbor, I'd like to not even be in, I'd like to withdraw them from consideration, right? Because you want to do such a great job that you feel compelled to refer me to friends and family. Is that how we all do our business? Because if you don't do your business like that, you're probably not on this call, right? So if the way that you do your business is you want to make sure that they get more than they bargained for, and if they knew that, would they be more likely to follow your guidance, or would they be more likely to like try to position themselves to negotiate down or whatever? The answer is that they're more likely to follow you. And a couple of things that I want to just mention from the volunteers, who I appreciate, Jackie and Rob, for volunteering, is when I go on listing appointments with the group, I find that when I walk through the house, and this is just my own observation, being that I've never been traditionally trained as a real estate agent. I've been trained by studying, and I've been trained by studying sales principles outside of the real estate industry as well. If I go through your house, right, and I start taking notes, and the master bedroom has it, and you start writing these notes down. When I'm walking there with you, the homeowners are feeling like, what are you writing down? Okay. One solution to help with that is always say, hey, Anna, would you mind if I took some notes while we walk through the house? Right. And then they're like, oh, no worries. Thank you. Right. And you might say, I just want to make sure that I'm accurate when I launch your listing, and that I get all the details. Those are things that you might not think matter, but they really do. Okay. And then when I heard Mr. Durso talk about, how he's consistent all the time, and I respect that tremendously. I think one observation is if he can find ways to describe positioning the house. I think he might have said we try to underprice it a little bit so we get more activity, right? And I think, underpricing is something that puts a seller at dis-ease or unease when they hear that. But if you were to say that,
I typically use the
I
word
take
positioning.
a different approach to that, Rob, kind of like the same concept though. I kind of just say, listen, if we price it over 500, we're going to eliminate all those people between 475 and 500. You know yourself, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you have asked me to do searches for you and to stop at a certain amount, like to look in price ranges. People look in price ranges, and quite often they can afford more than that. So why not let the people, make it a little more appealing, let the people who are just under that mark come in and see it, and they could be the ones who'll really surprise us in the end and give us the best price in terms and condition.
So if I could just throw something out there, I typically use the phrase positioning. And if, I don't know if you have time, but if Bobby Golden wants to jump in, Bobby uses, and I've used it also, it's called a pyramid, price pyramid. I'm sure you've all seen it at one point or another. And if I have a customer that is more apt to understand or catch on with a visual, I pull that out. Bobby's mastered the use of it, but that's another great technique. But positioning is the key word that we use, positioning.
So, Bobby, you're welcome to chime in if you're able to. If not, I think your partner has done a great job at describing it. And where for some of the newer agents, or maybe some of the agents that are kind of struggling to find a new way of positioning the strategy, Rob, that is completely logical, that pyramid, right? And that's the foundation to a lot of my belief systems. But sometimes, if I were to push you on the left shoulder, are you gonna, generally walk back, or is your resistance gonna be to come against me? What do you think?
Resistance.
So you're gonna push back on that. So my way of getting the same message across, okay, would be by giving them some evidentiary data and allowing them to come to their own conclusion. Because the chart makes all the sense in the world, but when you're showing them the chart, it doesn't, they might say to you, well, yeah, that's great, but that doesn't apply in Woodbridge. You know what I mean? Like, you could have somebody say something so stupid as, oh yeah, I know that most of the country that works, but not here. So by asking better questions and giving them some information, I'm always, we have two hands raised. Let me, to go to the hand raise real quick, and then we'll,
Hey,
did
Vince,
anybody have a question?
give me a second.
Anybody have a question before we go on?
My question to the group and to you is, what's your opinion of agents that take a listing that they know is overpriced and they feel like if they don't take it, someone else will take it at that price, and their reasoning is, well, I'm going to be able to do open houses there and generate leads, you know, and generate traffic on my website and all that kind of stuff.
So Beth, I would ask you, would you lie to somebody to earn their business? Would you start a relation? And I'm just saying this to the general. Would you tell a lie to start a relationship?
No.
Okay,
but I might say, listen, I think that's overpriced. I believe that the price is going to be more in this range, but we can try it for a week and see if we get any activity. I mean, I've done that before. I don't know, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Willing to test the market. Okay, this is great. You guys are going to get so much value from today. It's completely priceless here. Rob Garber, if you get a chance, if there's any comments there that we could share with the group, if you don't mind checking them. And I'm going to go to Bobby. You have your hand raised. Is that on purpose?
Yes.
Bobby Golden.
Yes. So I just want to throw out the dialogue I use with that pricing pyramid. And if I could just touch on Beth's comment, a price adjustment is no good without a listing. If you don't have the listing, you can never adjust the price. Now, if the seller is being unrealistic, you certainly have to share that. But you may say, listen, marketing time in the area is 30 days. We're going to try it your way at your number, and we're going to babysit it for 2 weeks. And if it doesn't happen within the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk a price adjustment. So you set the expectation. But what Bobby Durso brought up the pricing pyramid. My dialogue, which I think makes it pretty effective, is, and I'll use Bobby Durso as my seller. I would say, Mr. Durso, every homeowner comes to a fork in the road. Some homeowners want to be aggressive. Some homeowners want to test the market. Either strategy is okay. You determine on what strategy you want to take. And then I use the pricing pyramid and I say, listen, I'm going to share my gut feeling with you. We're not going to argue with the data, but I'm going to give you a starting point where it might be a little rocket fuel. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're creating the market. You put a little rocket fuel on it, the buyers will do the dirty work. Or you could test the market. So I start at kind of like your method, Rob, with auction and your dialogue that you use, but I give them a very aggressive price range, and then I give them a price range that is testing the market. I make a recommendation somewhere in the middle, and when the people see that, because I write it out right in front of them, when people see that, they realize that they don't want to price it aggressively, which they should do, but a lot of people don't want to do that. But they also see the benefit of not overpricing it, and probably 9 out of 10 times I get them in the range where I want them to be in the first place.
I appreciate that. And, I'm going to share with the group and I think, there's no perfect solution to this. It's part of it is the way that you can authentically communicate, with integrity to your prospects, your homeowners. Mr. Garber, any interesting questions worth sharing?
So there's a comment here that says that this one realtor finds seniors are the ones who think of a lower value. Younger owners think the value is more.
Okay. And Jackie, you had your hand raised?
The gentleman just before this last one sort of said things that I was gonna add to the conversation.
So I'm going to put something out there that may change the way that you approach this, and I'm going to back it up with some data. And I mean, there may be random like less than 2% exceptions to this rule, but extended marketing time always results in a lower price. Okay, if you agree with that, raise your hand. Like extended marketing time equals a lower price.
You know, Rob,
My camera's down, but I agree.
Okay.
for all the
Glenn-
years,
Glenn-
it's always been something that I've seen that the first week to 10 days of the house is on the market is when you get the most traction, the most people coming through, and the types of buyers that you really want to have for the listing, because those are the ones who are pre-approved and they've seen everything else on the market and they're waiting for the next wonderful house to come on. So personally, I've never been a fan of, okay, let's test it for 2 weeks. And then if we need to mark it down, we'll mark it down. Especially in a market like we have in most parts of the country right now, where there's such a shortage of inventory. The longer a house sits on the market in this environment, it just makes it look that much worse. That was my
Right. So when you hear people get into an argument, Mr. Garber, right? How many sides to the story are there?
There's lots.
So people used to say there's two, but there's really three, right? There's
Right.
three sides of the story, person A, person B, and then the reality. And I think, when you look at pricing homes in general, and this was my observation before I kind of put some other industry resources into it, I saw agents going out there basically taking the appraisal approach and saying, hey, Mr. Garber, here's the value of your house based on the comps, right? And the implication is that that's where we should list it to sell, because I've given you evidence that this is where the value is. Now, some sellers might have the belief that, hey, maybe I want to have some room to negotiate the price down, which is very logical, and I shared that at one point. And maybe sellers don't have ugly babies and they can't be objective with their house. So their house, the evidence says their house is worth 500, they think it's worth 600, and a very competent agent could come back to the office with the listing at 539, 549 and say, I told Anna that if it doesn't sell in a week, we're going to reposition it, right? Does anybody feel like that's a reasonable approach? If you do, raise your hand. Couple of hands going up. I'm going to tell you that if I have the opportunity to go out with you, probably not going to come away with that type of approach where we test the market. Because if you think about it logically, we all talked about, once the house has been on the market and it's been rejected by buyers, you're not going to strike the best price. Okay, so that early time when it hits the market is critical to getting your client the highest value for their home. Okay, so I've just kind of proven by way of hands that, here's the market value based on the comps. We calculated the comps, and this is pretty much indisputable. The seller is emotional, or for whatever reason wants to price it so they have room to negotiate. Or I saw some people say they want to test the market, right? You've heard that term. Can we just test the market, Howard, at this price? Okay, that might be what they say. But my approach is going to be different. My approach is going to be, yeah, we need to know what the property is worth. Then we're going to talk about a macro approach to it, okay? And I'm going to share with you a very recent analysis that I did. At least I this is yours. I took the address off, okay? Lisa Malcerisi, you there?
Thank you. I'm here. Yes.
All right, so check this out. So this is examples of pricing, okay? Now, if you, I may even be going out to meet this seller with Lisa, I'm not sure, but we took all the data. I taught Lisa how to export the data, and we looked at houses in this particular price point. And, you know, what did we do? We did like 1.5 to 1.9 million, Lisa?
1.550 to 1.9.
Okay, yeah, so we defined a price range. We defined a town. We didn't look at just we didn't look at the one neighborhood. We looked at the entire town of Plantation, or excuse me, of Parkland.
Parkland.
And we looked at listings and how they behave. And we determined that properties that sell in under 30 days, actually under 8 days, technically, we're selling for 97.26% of the original ask price. Okay. Once you go over 8 days, all the way up to 70, you're getting you're getting almost 7% less. And on let's say a $1.7 million property, 1.7 million times 0.07, you're losing $119,000 if you go beyond that 8 or 30-day period. And then if you go beyond 70 days, you're dropping another 3%, almost 3.5% you're dropping. So my conversation will be something like this. It will be, you know, Lisa, I took the time to analyze all the properties in Parkland in the price range 1.5 to 1.9, 1.55 to 1.9, and I want to share with you how they perform. And Lisa, if your house is able to go under contract in under 30 days, more particularly under 8 days, the market is rewarding you by giving you almost a little over 97% of the original ask price. Now, if we have extended marketing times that exceed 30 days, the average property is selling for 9.06% below ask price. And then if we go beyond 70 days in Parkland, the market is providing a 12.4% penalty for being having an extended marketing time. Now, if we decided to work together, I'm going to describe these strategies. The first strategy is auction style, where we maybe price it slightly below the market to get a lot of competition and demand. The second strategy is market-based. And the third strategy is lottery or aspirational pricing. If we decide that we're a good fit to work together, where would you like to introduce your home to the market, Lisa?
I would say below market value so we can sell it within 30 days.
Right. So let me ask you, for the audience here, is this compelling information to you? Does that like tell a story to you as a professional? Right. And then you know what happens when you test the market? You lose that most critical 8 days, and you could be testing the market to the extent of $119,000 average reduction in sale price. Is that something that you really feel like you want to do?
You know, there's a comment from Glenn Baker, which plays into this, and it's more from a human aspect. You know, here you are, you're developing a relationship with a buyer, with a seller, and you want them to understand that you're going to do the best you can for them personally because you care. If you take an overpriced listing, the owners have to get out with the babies, the dogs, the family, each showing an open house that you run for the realtor's benefit on a house that is not positioned on the market properly. Better to say you don't have to accept any offers you don't want, starting just below market, wins the examples of how this works every time. So, I mean, that
So-
adds to the argument of, you want to do the best job. We always talk about how it's our duty to do the best job for our clients, and I think Glenn summed that portion of it up very well.
And that's something that I didn't really touch on, but Robert, beyond the economic piece to it, right? There's a stressful and an emotional piece, right? Because
Right.
once your house is on the market for 3 weeks, 60 days, are you starting to wonder like, all right, why isn't it selling? And as a real estate professional, doesn't that conversation get to be a little bit more awkward over time? And are they in the right if they say, well, how come it's not selling? Why didn't you tell me that this wasn't the right strategy? Right? How do we answer that question? I don't know. I just think that, if you're honest with your customer, you're always honest with your customer. You can't be honest half the time. Okay. And when you're honest with the customer, you have to do the work. You have to have the comm skills, the communication skills to educate them on making the right choice for themselves and their family. I can personally tell you, and I'm looking straight at everybody, I've never been at an appointment with any of you where we took an overpriced listing to test the market. And if anybody's on this call here that's been on appointments with me that can remind me that there was something different, I would be surprised because I don't recall doing that. Okay. And we have a really high close rate when you invite me. Go ahead, Robert Durso, you had a question?
Well,
And
no,
then
I
we'll
just
you.
wanted to comment that the one thing that we have to keep in mind is tips and techniques are fluid. We're also dealing with different markets, and as long as everybody understands that today's case might be different in a year from now, and that you're constantly adjusting and adapting your methods. There was a time when we did test the market, or so we said we were testing the market, but there's different verbiage based on what the market is doing, and today it's very important that they understand out of the gate that testing the market is really not an option based on all the things that have already been said.
So I agree that the industry had different practices, Rob, but I think that if you were to go back to the time when the industry was more accepting of testing the market, the smartest agents were getting their clients to price them to sell quickly, because before the internet, after the internet, before days on market, houses that sold quickly have always executed a higher price than ones that have been on the market longer. And I'm going to have your clients educate you and convince you of that. And that's the real win here, right? Because sometimes people can't see the forest through the trees. Okay. Did you ever have a client that as a seller is like, oh, my house, it's a seller's market, right? And then as soon as they sell their house, right, and they're going to buy, they want to like think it's a buyer's market, and they think they can negotiate off the price, and they say, oh, I have leverage here. I sold my house, mine is a cash offer, and they go into a completely different zone. Anybody ever have that client? So Wilson, you've had that client before, huh? And it's amazing how they don't recall when they were selling their house. They're like, oh, it's a seller's market. Now it's right. They have selective amnesia.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, this strategy works perfectly when you're working with a buyer as well. You just reverse engineer the process, and maybe that'll be something I do in the next few weeks. But Rob Durso said that depends on the market. I respect and appreciate and always look to him for advice, but I'm going to disagree and say that, I've heard that it doesn't work in the $10 million market. It doesn't work in Florida. It doesn't work it works everywhere. Okay. And here's how you're going to communicate with your clients or your potential clients, right? I'm going to say to you, Mr. Durso, let's just say that we put it on the market at, 550 instead of 475, right? And we're going to test the market. And how long are we gonna wait before we reposition it? Just pretend to be like a typical seller.
30 days.
30 days. Okay, so we're 30 days into it. And you did see that, homes that are on for 30 days get about 7% less. So we're gonna be on for 30 days. We're gonna lower the
Mine's
price to
better
what?
though.
We're gonna lower the price to what? From 550 to, are we gonna go down to 525 or 500?
I was thinking 535.
So it's been on the market 30 days, we lowered to 535. Now imagine, Rob, you're a buyer. You see a house that's been on the market for 30 days and it just had a price cut. How are you gonna approach making an offer on that?
Below.
Why?
Well, because it's been sitting.
And
So you think,
they're
you think,
clearly that they're motivated if they're reducing
Yeah.
the price. Yeah.
Yeah.
so you think buyers might even, after we cut the price, they might even look to lowball the price?
It
Oh,
might.
yeah, definitely.
So look, I'm not saying that we're the right fit to work together, but if we did work together, do you really think that's the right strategy to get you and your family the best price?
No.
Okay, and you have to write this down. Okay, everybody needs a pen. Sellers don't argue with their own words. Would you all agree on that?
Amen, brother.
Sellers don't argue with what they say, they don't argue with if it comes out of their mouth. So, you remember they used to talk about, in the Floyd Wickman days, you do like a trial close, and if it doesn't work, then you kind of resell, and then you go for the close again, right? So if they say they want to do the 550, then you go along with it. You say, okay, let's just say we did it, and then how long would you wait? And then after you wait, what's it going to go to? And then I do the zinger, and I say, hey, Rob, imagine you're a buyer and you see a house has been on the market for 30 days and just had a price reduction. How are you going to approach making an offer? And 110% of the time they give me the same answer. Oh, we're going to lowball, right? And I will use language, and this is another thing that should probably be written, that should definitely be written down, right? Rob, how important is it for you to have some control over the process?
Very important.
Is that a fair question to ask a homeowner? How important is it for you to have control over the process? I think most people would say it's important, right? Yeah. And how important is it for you to get the maximum price for the sale of your home?
Very, very important.
So based on your answers, Rob, if you want to have a little bit of control over the process and get maximum price, what we need to do is we need to position it so that we get at least 2 offers. And then you want to wait. Because if we only have 1 offer, you know who's in control?
They are.
The buyer, right? They control where they're going to stop. They control what contingencies they're going to give. But if we have 2 offers, we're in the catbird seat. Okay, we now control the process. They're negotiating against each other. That's what defines a market. If you have a market with only 1 buyer, that's not a balanced market, right?
That's true.
So by asking better questions, you're going to get a better outcome, and it's great for your business. And I think we need to have the courage to say, like, hey, if I'm not gonna get you maximum value for your house, Rob, I hope you're not offended if I say, look, I'm not the right guy for you. Like, what do you think a seller would say if you went to them and said, look, if I'm not able to get you maximum value, full value for your house at the lowest possible stress level, would you be okay if I withdrew from consideration? Now you might say that's stupid, right? Because listings will eventually sell. But I'm telling you, you will do so much better when you say that with integrity and authenticity. Brian, what do you think people would say if you said, hey, if I'm not the right person to sell your house for the maximum value with the least stress, would you mind if I just told you I'm not the right guy at any point during our conversation?
They say what do you mean? You don't want the listing or, you know?
But I bet you nobody in this Zoom has said that. But Ryan, what do you think about if somebody said that?
I think it would shock me a little bit, and I'd be like, of course, I'd want you to get me the best value with the least amount of stress.
Right. So then that gives you the opportunity to reclose on the process, right? And I doubt if you have the communication master that they're going to let you out the door without pricing it correctly, right? And the evidence is compelling. You know, stay tuned to see if it works with Lisa. But and Lisa and I we probably spent about 2.5 hours. Is that fair, Lisa?
Yes, at least.
So we probably spent 2.5 hours, and there were two things that we're looking at. We're looking at, you know, the marketing time, and we're also looking at the impact of a $1.5 million plus house in Parkland that doesn't have a pool. Okay, because that's a big difference in putting a property on the market. And Lisa's very, very astute and intelligent, and, you know, said, Rob, I think the market is rejecting homes without pools, and I need to be able to share with them how that impacts. Am I paraphrasing correctly?
Yes, that's exactly right. And when we did the numbers, that was exactly what was happening.
Right. So if I'm fortunate enough to go out there, here's what we did. We did an analysis of the property. I took all the 5-bedroom homes built after 2020 newer homes, right? With and without pools. I looked at the per square foot sale, and I said that the pool value is $253,897. Okay. And that's an exact number because I have a process for doing that. It's not like it's about 200,000. If I told you in Parkland, all the homes that sold in the past 2 years with versus without a pool, the difference was about 200,000. Or if I told you, you know, of the 50 properties that sold in Parkland in this price range, the impact of having a pool was $253,897, which sounds more impressive or more convincing? Anybody? If I say about, or if I say, you know, in the past 2 years, homes with pools sold for $253,897 more, which is more convincing, about 200,000 or the precise number?
The precise number.
Precise number, yes.
And the precise number backed up with data, I don't know how you can argue with that, right? And I even went deeper. You know, I said, all right, all 5-bedroom homes sold in the past 18 months. So I took out newer construction homes, right? Because this one was only new construction or newer. I said all the homes in the past 18 months, the value of a pool was $143,145. Okay. And then I took all the 5-bedroom homes sold in the prior 6-month period. Then I took the same 6-month period a year ago, and I looked at, you know, what the per square foot price was, what the average sale price, and, you know, Lisa and I determined that the market's pretty stable. You know, a year ago there were 16. This past 6 months there were 20. The price per square foot is $18 more. The marketing time is 13 days more. You know, I said it's at least $125,000 impact of not having a pool. So we now have a price range that we're prepared to give them. So Lisa, thank you for allowing me to share that. By the way, do we have an appointment?
I'm waiting to hear back. I called them yesterday, they didn't answer, and I sent them, they sent me a text and I sent them a text back, and I'm going to call them after as well.
So I volunteered because I want to put myself in the front line so I have good data to share with everybody here. And usually we come back with good stories, but if it's not a good story, we'll be transparent about it.
Thank you, Rob, for all your help. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
it's my pleasure.
Go get
So,
him, Lisa.
Thanks,
so,
Terry.
You're welcome, honey. I'm coming also.
So tag teaming. So, in terms of,
Rob,
you
there's
know,
one more, there's one more comment that I think bears hearing. Um, because it opens up two things to be concerned about. It says, even if you say we will reevaluate in a week, or two to test the market, we are not assured that the seller will actually reduce at that time. And that would create, you know, a situation where it's the seller against the agent, which is never a winning place to be.
and Robert, I think that's a possibility. It's also provides a pathway to additional friction in the transaction, right?
Exactly.
You know, when the team leaders or T2 summit, we heard the number one individual agent in Remax in Maryland. He'd said that his goal and his conversation when he talks to prospective home sellers is, we need to position your home to reduce as much friction as possible in the transaction. And, you know, friction can kill a deal. So we need to figure out, how do we reduce that friction? And I think if you're starting out with, you know, having to reduce the price if it doesn't work, number one, how confident are you that you're going to sell it for the maximum value? And, you know, we might have some people on the Zoom here, Robert, that say, I get them to sign that in advance, which I've seen happen. Like, hey, you know, we're going to pre-sign a price reduction 8 days from now, and you have it in writing, Robert, but I just want to try the market. You know, I feel that my goal of this session today was not to educate you on how to determine what the value of a house is. You know, maybe looking at how I looked at the, you know, pool and no pool, and I looked at the impact of days on market versus sales price. Maybe that is some tangible education that you get. But the real piece is to give you the communication skills and the confidence to get the sellers to make the right decision by asking better questions. Okay, and the question that you should be saying is, if we decide to work together, how do you see us positioning the house when we launch the listing? And if you're not happy with that, then you can put them into the buyer's perspective and say, hey, Ryan, if it doesn't sell in 30 days, what are we going to do? We're going to lower the price. So now we lowered the price, and now let's assume somebody's interested. How are they going to approach making an offer, Ryan? And they're going to tell you they're going to lowball. And is that the, you know, look at Ryan, would you be offended if I, you know, said this is not the listing for me, if I felt I couldn't get you maximum value for your home?
No. Yeah,
That's
if
pretty,
you don't feel like you could get maximum value, and
you know,
I would be,
if I felt that, you know, either, you know, you were making the wrong choice to get the value out of your house, or I wasn't the right agent, you wouldn't be offended if I just said, hey, I'm not the right person.
correct.
And I'll bet you throughout the all the real estate listing appointments, that's probably not been said many times. But I would tell you, like, you know, sometimes signing up a bad listing is not a good thing, because if it doesn't sell, how much do you get paid?
0,
Zero. And is there more stress on a failed listing than a successful listing?
always.
Definitely.
So you work harder for less versus, you know, delivering a superior outcome and getting paid more, right? So look, I hope that this was a valuable hour that we got to spend together here. You know, I really do care. And if you do have a particular listing that you need help in repositioning, you know, I hope our fearless leaders are able to, you know, adopt this and learn it. But if they're not, or if you want to have me help you out, you know, I am, you know, here to help you out. You might have to get on a call with me early in the morning or on a Saturday, you know, just to fit into my schedule. But I really do believe in what I talked to you about. I believe that, you know, when we have the process to communicate with integrity, we get better outcomes, more repeat business, and everybody wins. All right. And any last questions before we wrap it up?
Rob, can I add something to what you're saying?
Sure.
I believe taking the approach that you're talking about makes the seller feel more confident and have trust in you.
Well, I think
Because you're involving them in the process in a different way. Instead of preaching to them and telling them, you're leading them to understanding the process.
so Colleen, I'm going to go overtime on this one here, which I rarely do. And if you have other commitments, please feel free to drop off. But I want you to say one thing that you learned from this session, and just do it one person at a time, because I think this will really be interesting. So who wants to say one thing that they learned from this? And I know you have Path to Platinum if you're on that, so you got to go. But anybody not on Path to Platinum, what's one thing that you learned?
I'm going to go Rob Gary Greenacre. Be straightforward with the seller and be willing to walk away from the listing if they push for a higher price.
Yeah, if you can't get them the highest value, no deal is our solution. Anybody else?
I've learned your verbiage.
You've written down some of the language, right?
The language is important.
And Anna,
super important.
Will that help you with your confidence, you think?
Yes.
It helps. I mean, I don't usually have a confidence issue when I'm going to listings. I just want to be heard, but not in a smart way. I mean, I don't want to come across as an arrogant realtor. I want to come across as an educated realtor. This is where your verbiage is very important. It does bring confidence, extra confidence to the conversation, for sure.
Fantastic. 2 or 3 others, then we'll wrap it up.
I like
Beth?
how you said you want to price it to bring 2 buyers because they compete against each other instead of just 1 buyer, because that puts them in the driver's seat. I love that. That's like amazing. And I think
I like
it's
that too.
convincing for somebody to price it a little bit lower.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I really like the if we decide to work together, because you're going in not as a cocky, arrogant agent and like, hey, I'm the end all be all. It's like, hey, if I decide to work with you, and if you decide to work with me, you're kind of it's that takeaway close in a way.
Right, but it levels the playing field, right? Because don't people think that our peers might say anything to get a listing, Brian?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think when you say if we decide to work together, it kind of separates you from the perception of the industry, and it says, look at it. It's not just your choice. It's a mutual decision that if we're a good fit, we'll figure out how to work together. One last one before we go.
Yeah, you're coming from a point of not being desperate.
Right. That's good. That's good.
Right. Who wants to do the closing takeaway from this?
Closing takeaway is always positioning your home. I like the term positioning your home to get the highest and best price in the shortest amount of time.
Okay, so Alexa, you get the award for pulling something else out that I didn't share, okay? And that is you only get 1 chance to make a first impression.
Right.
Okay, so that's another thing that you might want to use when you're out talking to a seller, is you really do only get 1 chance to make a first impression. And if the people see the house, it's positioned right and it's priced right, they'll be interested. You'll have more competition. When they see a price reduction come by and something that they already saw, they might not even pay attention to it. Is that possible, Alexa?
Absolutely.
When you ask the seller that, it has meaning when they use the words themselves. And Tony Bureau, you were just gonna say that you love the fact that people don't argue against their own words, right? Tony, they don't argue with what they say, right?
They don't argue.
So anyway, I appreciate you all spending an hour with me. I know you're all busy, and hopefully you can reach out to me or one of our leaders, and we can help you out with positioning or dealing with a difficult or unrealistic seller. Take care, everybody.
This was excellent,
All right,
Rob.
we got one
Thank
more
you.
question, Robert.
There's one more comment that, you know, in the notes here that I think that you should be aware of, which is that they would love to have the buyer side conversation in another one of these masterminds.
Okay, we'll take the reverse side of this in the next 30 days.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Bye.